They walked past me for 15 years like I was a damn ghost. Not even the polite kind of invisible, just full-on institutional furniture. Like a dusty ficus in the break room. Beige walls, flickering fluorescents, the same burnt coffee every morning, and me, Marilyn from Records, quietly replacing toner and filing paperwork like some kind of sentient filing cabinet. No hellos? No eye contact? Half of them probably thought I was a temp who never left. The other half? Didn't think at all. The interns used to ask if I was with janitorial. One time, I was in the restroom mirror fixing my blouse when I heard one whisper to another, "Oh, I think she came with the building." That's how deep my anonymity ran. The only time someone from upstairs said my name out loud was during a fire drill, and even then it was, "Is the Records woman still alive?" Spoiler, I was. Barely. Every raise skipped, every company event accidentally, not CC'd. Every new hire who became a senior exec while I was still ordering copy paper, it all stacked up like moldy files in my brain. And still, I stayed. Quick pause, since 97% of you are listening and forgetting to hit that subscribe button. Don't worry, I get it. You're like them, heads down, moving fast, missing the quiet stuff. But if you're here for the long haul, liking and subscribing helps the team keep digging up these stories. And trust me, this one's about to unravel hard. See, what they didn't know, what none of them bothered to ask, is that back in the day, when this company was just 3 guys and a dream, they needed someone to keep the records straight. No budget for lawyers, no trust in each other. And there I was, newly divorced, sharp with numbers, and invisible even then. I typed up the original incorporation packet on a second-hand Dell in my basement. I still remember the founder, Dave, a guy who always smelled like printer ink and desperation, handing me a crumpled napkin with equity percentages scribbled on it. He told me, "Marilyn, if this thing ever blows up big, you make sure the vultures don't eat what matters." I didn't know what he meant at the time. I do now. They called it Clause 12A4D, a contingency line buried so deep in the Articles of Incorporation it didn't even have a digital copy. It gave a silent proxy owner veto power in the event of an acquisition exceeding $1 billion. Guess who that was? Yeah, me. But for 15 years, I didn't speak. I watched. I listened. I saw who got the bonuses they didn't earn. I saw Marcus, the smug COO with his cufflinks and his spray tan, push out the old staff like they were roaches under his leather loafers. I saw the assistant VP expense an entire honeymoon under client development. I saw the stock options shuffle quietly into a select few hands, never the hands that cleaned the floors, or ran the mailroom, or stayed until midnight to fix the servers. They thought I was a relic, a leftover, a nobody with a wrinkled cardigan and orthopedic shoes, and I let them think that. Until last week, when I overheard Marcus crowing in the elevator, loud enough for the whole damn floor to hear. "We're going to be rich, boys. After this merger, we gut the dead weight and start clean." I sipped my coffee and stared at my reflection in the stainless steel doors. Wrinkled, invisible, dead weight. Right. That night, I went home, poured a glass of boxed wine, and opened the old metal file cabinet under my stairs. Still had the original manila envelope from Dave. Still had the signatures. Still had the clause. And I started to remember everything. They started getting louder upstairs. The kind of loud that comes with too much cologne, espresso martinis before noon, and whiteboards covered in words like synergy and disruption. One Monday morning, the elevator dinged, and I swear the interns were practically vibrating with caffeine and stock rumors. Something about a merger. Something big. $900 million, then $950. Then one of the junior analysts whispered it in the break room like it was a prayer. 1.02. That's billion with a B. And just like that, the building changed. They swapped out the lobby art for some abstract monstrosity that looked like someone vomited money onto canvas. The third-floor espresso machine started serving oat milk. Executives started walking around with that extra bounce, shaking hands they usually ignored, patting backs like they suddenly discovered camaraderie. Marcus strutted like he owned the sky, barking into his phone about valuation maturity and post-signature purges. The whispers turned to loud congratulations. There was champagne in the VP suite by Thursday. I saw the CEO himself give a high five to the guy who installed the Nap Pod app. They started handing out future leader badges to fresh out-of-college hires who didn't know the difference between a ledger and a lunch menu. And when one of the custodial staff asked what the commotion was about, Marcus turned and said, clear as day, "We're finally getting rid of the dead weight. Once the ink dries, we're cleaning house." They didn't even whisper it. Legacy staff, fossils, dinosaurs. Maintenance wombats, I think someone called us. I was walking past with a ream of paper when I heard that one. Wombats. I sipped my coffee. Lukewarm, bitter. Same mug I'd had since 2011. No one noticed me pause by the corner printer. No one cared. But I heard it. That one word buried in the flood of buzzwords and IPO chatter. Founder clause. Just a throwaway line from legal? Some junior associate asking for the original documentation to confirm a signature chain. There's a clause in the original stack, 12.a something. We just need to check for the founder's silent proxy writer. The moment I heard that, my fingers tightened around the paper I was holding. It wasn't much, just an old interdepartmental print job with someone's forgotten agenda. But it crumpled all the same. Because I remembered. 15 years of being wallpaper, and suddenly one dusty little phrase spun the whole building sideways in my mind. Founder clause. I walked back to the records room slower than usual. The hallway buzzed with glass door meetings and excited finance bros calculating their after-tax windfalls. No one noticed me slip behind the storage room door. No one ever did. I unlocked the bottom drawer, second key from the left, the one with the chipped blue rubber on the edge. Inside, hard copies, originals, the stuff no one digitized because back then, no one believed it would matter. But Dave believed it might. And now, so did I. I didn't sleep that night, not really. I went through the motions like always, microwaved some leftover stir-fry, fed the cat, sat on the couch staring at the TV while some judge yelled at idiots over parking tickets. But my mind kept circling that word like a hawk. Founder clause. I hadn't thought about that in over a decade. Not since the early days, back when Dave still ran this place with stress acne and optimism, when we didn't have consultants or kombucha taps or a 17-person marketing department that couldn't spell logistics. So around midnight, I grabbed a flashlight and went down into the basement. The good flashlight, not the one with the flickering bulb. The air smelled like old boxes and dryer lint. Against the far wall, wedged between my ex-husband's record collection and a crate of Christmas lights, I hadn't untangled since Obama's first term, sat the gray filing cabinet. Rusted on one hinge, still locked. I used the same key I'd worn around my neck on a fake Tiffany chain all those years ago. Bottom drawer, legal. And there it was, labeled in my own handwriting. Initial articles, Incorporation Packet, D. Halverson. I opened it like it might hiss at me. The pages were yellowed but intact, stapled in that slightly off-center way I always hated. I flipped through the boilerplate. Mission statement, structure, ownership split. 30% Dave, 35% his cousin Carl, 20% to some angel investor who bailed 3 months later. Then I saw it. Clause 12, A4D. It was almost laughable how innocuous it looked. Just 2 paragraphs. Not bolded, not underlined. Probably missed by every junior lawyer who reviewed the company's docs over the years. It laid out a contingency, a fail-safe, Dave called it at the time. In the event of a sale, acquisition, or merger exceeding $1 billion in value, a designated silent equity proxy retained final signature authority to validate or void the transfer, and, here's the kicker, was granted conditional authority to propose amendments to the executive compensation structure if they had not served on the board in the previous 24 months. The name on the line? Marilyn C. Baines. My name. My full name. Next to Dave's chicken scratch signature, and a notary stamp from a woman named Tammy who used to work at the bank branch down the street. I sat back on the cement floor, knees aching, the cold biting through my sweats. My name. Not a nickname, not initials, not a copy error. My actual name. It all came flooding back. Dave asking me to handle the filing myself because he couldn't afford proper legal counsel. Saying he wanted someone who gave a damn about the company's soul to be the last line of defense. I thought he was being dramatic. I remember saying, Dave, I'm a glorified paperclip dispenser. You sure about this? And he'd grinned with that tired, hopeful look and said, That's why I trust you. 15 years later, the paper still lived. The clause still held. And now, the deal, the champagne, the bonuses, the buyout, the entire future these people were banking on, hinged on this forgotten clause. And me. I set the folder on the floor like it was made of glass. I sat there for a long while, just listening to the furnace hum and the soft creak of my house settling. Then I stood, grabbed my ancient laptop from the upstairs closet, and opened my dusty contact list. It took 3 tries, but I found her, Dana Winters. She used to sit 2 cubicles down before she got scooped up by a private equity firm. Last I heard, she was doing mergers so large they came with security details. I sent a message. Simple. Direct. Dana, you free for a quick legal review? Something old just became very new. She responded 12 minutes later. 1 word. Come. And just like that, the rules had changed. Weeks rolled by and the building turned into a pressure cooker wrapped in designer suits. Every whiteboard became a battleground of acronyms and valuation charts. Every office door was half open just long enough to let the stench of cologne and ambition spill into the hallway. The 3rd floor became ground zero, the war room, they called it. And the generals? Marcus, of course, holding court with his crocodile smile, barking into speakerphones like he was trading nuclear secrets. The CEO, Ellis, did a full 180 from his usual cardigan-wrapped softness, suddenly all about velocity and lean transformation. Said it in one town hall. We don't just want young blood. We want blood that's already running. Whatever the hell that meant. Meanwhile, I stayed where I'd always been. Records, admin support, fetching files for legal, like they couldn't be accessed with 2 clicks and a half-functioning brain. Fixing the main printer every time one of the interns tried to force glossy paper through tray 2. Ordering more pens for executives who only write in blue. I smiled, I nodded. I disappeared into corners and stairwells and server rooms. They saw me like you see a fire extinguisher, nice to have around, but God forbid you actually need it. And while they congratulated each other over catered sushi platters and expense account bourbon tastings, I watched, listened, took notes. One Tuesday, I caught the CFO's assistant slipping a forged signature onto a travel reimbursement form for a 5-star resort in Tulum. "Wellness conference," she whispered to her friend, both of them giggling as they closed out the request. I screenshotted it before she could even finish the transaction. Then there was Marcus, surprise, surprise, using corporate funds to fly in some industry liaison who just happened to be the same woman who used to be his personal trainer. "Client strategy meeting," he said, right before she walked past me, wearing 6-inch heels and a smile like she'd already cashed her NDA. Stock options were quietly redirected into new performance pools the week before final evaluations. Bonuses for the C-suite doubled in one late-night board adjustment. And through it all, I collected. Quietly, methodically. It started small, just a folder on my desktop labeled Compliance Notes. Then a second, then a third. Before I knew it, I had built a dossier that would make an auditor weep with gratitude. Misappropriations, ethics violations, SEC red flags dressed up as policy changes. Dates, names, files, approvals, a mosaic of corruption in spreadsheets and scanned PDFs. And here's the thing. I didn't do it out of rage. Not at first. I wasn't looking to burn the place down. I was just awake. For the first time in years, I wasn't just moving through the days like a half-deflated balloon stuck behind a ceiling tile. I had purpose. I had knowledge. And as Dana confirmed, with increasing certainty, that Clause 12A4D was still valid, legally binding, fully enforceable, and completely off the current leadership's radar, I began to realize something else. They weren't just counting me out. They didn't even know I was in the game. So I kept collecting, kept watching Marcus preen in meetings like a bloated rooster, kept tracking Ellis's shift from cautious dad boss to smooth-talking dealmaker, kept showing up early, leaving late, staying quiet. And every single time they looked through me like glass, I thought the same thing. Keep going. You're almost there. It was a Thursday, rain hammering the windows, the sky all bruised purple like God was in a bad mood. Upstairs, the war room was louder than usual, voices bouncing off glass, that panicked hum of people who'd been sure of victory and now smelled smoke. I was walking past with a rolling cart full of archived contracts, mostly just for show. I'd long since memorized what was useful and what was noise, when I caught the edge of a conversation that stopped me cold. "You see this line?" A voice snapped, young, clipped, too caffeinated for its own good. 12.4D, legacy proxy signature. It's blank. Silence. The paper shuffle kind. Then another voice, older, slower. "That's just ceremonial, right? Some founder's relic clause?" "No, it's a condition precedent. Says right here, no equity transfer or change of governance shall be considered binding absent the documented approval of the named legacy proxy. And there's no digital record, just this scan. Look, Names completely smudged. Initials maybe, but... The junior lawyer trailed off, then muttered under her breath, "This is a goddamn problem." Footsteps. Chairs squeak. I kept pushing my cart down the hallway, slow and quiet, like I wasn't recording every breath they took. Then Marcus spoke, all that frat boy faux charm melting into irritation. Probably someone dead, or some early-stage janitor they gave a gold star to. Legal can sort it out. That got a laugh, short, nervous. "Get it cleaned up. We can't stall the signing over some ghost signature." I stopped at the end of the hall, took a sip of my coffee, still warm, still bitter. I didn't even blink. I'd been waiting for this moment since I dusted off that clause in my basement, since Dana confirmed every word, since I started feeding her select files from my compliance archive, just enough to raise eyebrows, not alarms. But now it wasn't just legal theory, it was real. It was breathing down their necks. They were staring at a document that refused to close without my name. I went back to my desk, the cramped little office behind the storage server where no one ever knocked, and opened the drawer where I'd been keeping a sealed envelope. Inside, the original paper copy. My name, legible, signed, notarized. I ran my fingers over the ink like it was a relic from another life. Then I stood, reached for the garment bag I hadn't touched since my niece's wedding, and unzipped it. The suit was navy, clean, simple, timeless. Next to it, I'd tucked a pen, matte black, heavy, the kind they give retiring CEOs. I laid both on the desk, smoothed the jacket sleeve with the flat of my palm, and for the first time in 15 years, I felt seen, if only by myself. They'd been calling me dead weight. Turns out I was the ballast. And tomorrow, they were going to learn exactly how hard I could pull. The conference room smelled like money and nervous cologne. Crab cakes the size of quarters on silver trays, glass flutes sweating champagne even though it wasn't noon yet, and a dozen people who'd never built a damn thing in their lives beaming like they'd just cured cancer. Cameras were rolling. There was a velvet rope outside the elevator for press access. The buyer's team, all blazers and Bluetooth headsets, stood like statues along the back wall. Marcus was in rare form. He'd shaved, wore a tie, even had the audacity to wink at me as I rolled in with a tray of last-minute NDA packets. I gave him the same look I always did, blank, neutral, one click above a fax machine. Ellis, our once dad boss turned IPO evangelist, stood at the head of the table, holding a Mont Blanc pen like it was Excalibur. "We just need one final piece before we sign," he said, turning to legal. "Legacy proxy sign-off per original governance documents. You've got it, right?" Silence. Legal shifted in their seats. That junior associate, bless her obsessive little heart, whispered something to her boss. Papers shuffled, throats cleared, then a murmured, "We're still tracking it down. The name's illegible in the scan. No confirmed identity on file." Ellis's smile faltered. Just a little. Marcus chuckled. "Can't we just waive it? Some ancient clause? It's ceremonial, right?" The buyer's lead attorney turned his head so slowly I thought his neck would snap. "If it's in the articles and it's precedent language, it's enforceable. If unsigned, we can't execute the merger under U.S. corporate law. That's not ceremonial. That's binding." Every eye in the room widened. I stood still, just long enough for the quiet to become uncomfortable. Then I stepped forward. You could hear a fork clink on china somewhere near the fruit tray. I believe, I said, my voice steady, clear, just loud enough. You'll be needing my signature to finalize. Ellis blinked. Marcus scoffed. Someone in the back snorted. Then confusion. Then silence. I reached into my leather folder, one I hadn't carried in years, and laid the clause down in front of them. The original. Paper copy. Signed. Notarized. My name in ink. Their mouths moved like fish in a tank. Open, close, open again. No one made a sound. The buyer's attorney snapped on a pair of reading glasses, leaned in, read the document, then slowly looked up at me. Do you retain the right to amend compensation structures under this clause? I nodded once. Clause 12A4D. 2 paragraphs down. He turned to Ellis. This signature is mandatory. Marcus stood up like he was about to yell, but I was already pulling out my pen. Not a word, not a threat, just a name in ink. My name. On the last line, they didn't know existed. I clicked the pen shut, placed it neatly beside the document, and sat down at the head of the table. This is a joke, Marcus shouted, shoving his chair back so hard it screeched across the polished floor. You're telling me she gets to decide whether this deal happens? Legal didn't answer him, not directly. Instead, the junior attorney, still flushed from earlier, opened her laptop, tapped a few keys, then slowly rotated the screen to face the head buyer. Clause 12A4D. Signed, valid, notarized. The original is in her possession. There's no digital override. The governance protocols are still active. The buyer didn't flinch, just leaned back, folding his hands. Then we don't move forward without her consent? Ellis looked like someone had sucked all the blood from his face. Marilyn, surely this isn't necessary. We're all on the same team here. I said nothing. Marcus scoffed. She's a glorified filing clerk. She makes coffee and hunts down toner cartridges. This isn't how the real world works. That's when I opened the folder. I didn't raise my voice, didn't gloat. Just laid the second document flat on the table and slid it forward. Across the top, bold and clean, amended equity distribution recommendations, per clause 12A4D. The buyer leaned in, read the first few lines, lifted his eyebrows. Is this your proposal? I nodded. Condition of consent. He handed it to his counsel without another word. Marcus lunged to grab the paper, but Ellis stopped him with a sharp look. Let's read it first, the CEO muttered, voice like gravel in his throat. The document was only 2 pages, but every line carried weight. Reallocation of executive bonuses, reduced by 40%, citing recent ethics violations, with appendix references. Restoration of the furloughed support staff's severance, retroactively applied. Introduction of custodial and records departments to the stock options pool, backdated to last year's performance reviews. CFO's travel expenses marked for audit, and at the very bottom, in quiet, unassuming font, COO Marcus D. Vinton is to receive 0 performance compensation upon merger completion, pending internal review of policy breaches under sections 4.6 and 7.1. Marcus looked like he'd been slapped. You've lost your mind. You can't do this. This is extortion. No, the buyer said flatly. It's governance, and it's legal. Ellis stared at me across the table, deflated. Why now? I met his eyes. Because for 15 years, I was part of this company. You just never saw me. The buyer cleared his throat. We'll sign under her terms or walk. Our investors won't risk a dispute this close to close. More silence. The longest kind. The kind that hangs in the air like static before a lightning strike. And still, I didn't smile. I just reached again for my pen. Let them watch. Let them realize the last signature didn't come from above. It came from below. From the woman who kept the foundation clean while they decorated the penthouse in glass. The air in the room snapped. You could feel it, the hard shift from disbelief to panic, like someone had suddenly announced the brakes were gone and the road was ending. Marcus stood, pacing, vibrating with that privileged fury of a man who'd never heard the word no from someone without an executive title. This is extortion. This is betrayal. She doesn't do anything. The buyer's lead counsel didn't even look up. Mr. Vinton, you're listed in this document as disqualified from performance compensation due to documented ethics violations. If you'd like to contest, I suggest legal arbitration, separately, after the transaction. Ellis leaned over to legal, his voice low but still sharp enough to carry. We need to stall. Push the signing until next quarter. Get a mediator. Delay the vote. But the buyer shook his head without hesitation. We're not waiting. We're either signing now under her terms, or we're walking. He gestured toward the door. Plenty of other fish in this space who'd kill for this valuation. Silence fell like a dropped brick. Then Marcus made his final, fatal move. He reached across the table and tried to rip the amended terms sheet in half. The buyer's bodyguard, not subtle about the role, stepped forward before he even touched it. Just one step, enough to stop the hand midair. Ellis didn't defend him. Instead, he turned, shoulders slumped, face pale as printer paper. Marcus, you're done. What? He snapped. You heard me. Resign. Now. You'll be lucky to walk out of here with your watch still on your wrist. Marcus sputtered, blinking fast. Then, because of course, he pointed at me. This is because of her. Some vindictive old hag in the records room? Who had the authority the whole time, I interrupted. Calm, steady. The voice of the person who had always read the fine print. You just never thought to look past your own reflection. He stormed out. No one followed. Ellis exhaled like he'd been punched in the gut. Then he turned to me. Will you sign? I didn't move. Not right away. I looked at every face in that room, each one suddenly still, sobered, trying to reconcile who I was with who I'd always been. The woman they ignored in the elevator, the one they forgot to invite to holiday parties, the one who fixed their printers and fetched their compliance logs and watched every shortcut they thought no one noticed. And then, without a word, I picked up the pen. I signed. Neat, straight. My name, just as it had appeared 15 years ago when this company was nothing more than a pitch deck and a basement full of borrowed desks. The buyer nodded. Done. His assistant hit send on the press release. The cameras flashed. The merger was complete. With my terms, my equity distribution, my hand on the tiller, just long enough to steer the ship back toward its soul. I stood, straightened my blazer. No applause. No thank you speeches. Just the rustle of power shifting in real time. And behind me, I left a room of people blinking under fluorescent lights, still trying to understand how the woman with the toner stains on her fingers had just rewritten the ending they thought was already printed. I walked out the way I came in, quiet, steady, unnoticed. No applause, no interviews, no one chasing after me with a quote request or a handshake. Just the faint sound of someone cracking a can of La Croix down the hall, and the rustle of paperwork as the next round of opportunists tried to figure out what the hell had just happened. The elevator ride down felt different. Not triumphant. Not smug. Just clear. Like a fog that had sat on my shoulders for 15 years finally lifted. I looked at my reflection in the chrome doors. Same cardigan, same practical shoes, same tired eyes. But something behind them had shifted. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I just was. I walked through the lobby like a ghost leaving a house. No one looked up. The new receptionist didn't even register me. Her screen was full of Slack notifications and catered lunch orders. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city buzzed like always, oblivious to what had shifted upstairs. That night, I sat in my living room with the lights low and a glass of boxed wine in my hand, watching the email come through. Subject line: Appointment confirmation, Strategic Governance Advisor, Board Liaison. There was a badge mock-up attached. My name, new title, executive access, the works. I didn't reply, didn't pack a bag, didn't even print the damn badge. Next morning, I grabbed my coat, walked down to the little diner 2 blocks from my house, the one with the cracked vinyl booths, and the same waitress who calls everyone honey. Ordered eggs over easy, rye toast, black coffee. No fanfare. No one knew me. And that's how I wanted it. Halfway through the meal, I unfolded the paper someone left behind on the counter. Front page headline: Anonymous legacy shareholder reshapes billion-dollar deal. No name, no photo, just a story filled with confusion, speculation, and one confirmed fact. The final signature came from someone no one saw coming. I folded the paper, slid a 20 under my mug, and stood to leave. Outside, the wind had picked up again. I zipped my coat. No limo, no flash. Just a woman walking into the world on her own terms. 15 years invisible? All it took was one pen stroke to be seen.